Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of CYC Youth Chat. My name's Andrew and tonight on the show we've got Jenny, Michelle, Sam and Beck. On today's episode we're going to be discussing the issue of loneliness. We're going to touch on a few topics, especially in the realm of social media and technology, but we're also going to talk about coping mechanisms and ways of working out whether someone is lonely and how to deal with it. So to kick it off, I want to start with the first question. It is, what is the difference between being alone and being lonely? Beck, what do you think?
Looking at it from a spiritual perspective, there are times when you will be alone. You will be sitting, say, quiet time. You'll be sitting alone by yourself. There's no one else but you and God. But you're not lonely in that God is there with you, and He's everywhere. So, yeah, you're alone, but it's all about what you feel as well.
Yeah.
So if you acknowledge that God is there with you, and if you're praying and you know that God is right there with you, you won't feel loneliness. It's a trick that the devil plays, which says, your prayers are hitting the roof. God's not there. He can't hear you. That's a trick that he plays to know that, to try and make you feel that you are lonely. But of course we all know that you're never actually lonely. It's something it's a feeling that he tries to put within you.
Sam, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I do think that being lonely does have like a negative connotation to it. So that someone can just be in a room full of people and someone can, have everyone around them, but they can feel lonely. They can feel as though they can't connect with anyone. They can feel as though their heart is not in the right place and they do feel alone even though they are surrounded by everyone around them. As opposed to someone who is alone, you can be alone with God and not feel lonely at all. You can really feel His presence. So again, I think it's like a comparison between something that's physical and something that's spiritual. So being lonely is about a physical loneliness, not having anyone next to you, but being alone with Christ, that's a spiritual connection with God. And I think that's something we should aim to achieve, being alone with God.
Guys, Beck touched on this issue of loneliness, the idea that could be a trick from the devil. What do you guys think about that?
I think she's right. Like, obviously, there are certain times in our lives where, as she said, we could be surrounded by people but still feel lonely. So I think it is, as she was saying, just this idea of the way we feel, the way we perceive things, and knowing and getting to that level of knowing that God is always with us. And then so essentially we never are truly alone because we do have God on our side and He's always there right beside us, guiding us and helping us and, being our companion, our friend and our Father. So yeah.
Alright, so the next question, Jay, what are some ways in which you can tell if someone actually is lonely?
Well, I think it's really good that you just touched on the differences between loneliness and being alone. So the question was how can you know if someone's lonely? I don't know, I think it's really, really, I don't know, maybe they don't have much friends or they don't connect with people or they don't know how to be around people or maybe, I don't know, socially awkward or so.
Can I just add as well, Jenny said something really important, which is how do you actually tell? They're usually really good at hiding it. Feeling lonely is, they're putting on the smile, they've practiced it a lot, it's something deep within themselves that they've felt. So they've become really good at hiding it. So it is hard for them.
Yeah, so I think because of that, I think it's really important that to address someone who you may think is lonely, that you have to go with it with a heart of love and a heart fully 100% caring for them. Because if I was to go with it, half-half, and I go up to them saying, "Oh, are you okay?" and they're like, "Yeah, I'm okay," then I'd be like, "All right, all good," and I would walk away from the situation. Yeah. Not actually knowing that deep within inside his heart, he's not okay. But if I go with the whole 100% of my heart poured into him and I truly care about him and I truly love him or her, and I ask them, "Are you really okay?" I can, you can tell, or you'll be able to feel or gauge that even though they may say they'll be okay or they're all right, that they are feeling lonely. They really need someone to talk to. That they feel that they're distant from Christ.
And that's true, I guess, with most of these people. If you just scratch a little bit further, you'll uncover all of maybe the anguish or the
Yeah.
pain they're feeling. And it doesn't take much to do that. Like, it's just maybe a secondary question. Like, I think too often we ask the first question, are you right? And then, oh yeah, good mate, whatever, and you walk off. But, that second question might be the difference between, someone who goes away empty or someone that goes away, maybe with a new friend. So I think that's a good way of looking at it, Sam.
Yeah, and so that's the problem. That we will get to a point where we will come so close to really connecting them, and then we'll just fall away. And then we'll say, oh, okay, and we'll move ourselves away from that situation. And then it's upsetting because later on we may come to realize that we were so close, and that if we just spent just that little bit more, or if we asked that second question, we could have found out more, and we could have really helped them.
I think you're touching on an important point, which is it's not always about what you say, but it's just about the persistence and getting to the point where they themselves feel that you are true in trying to help them overcome that loneliness. It's not always about what you do or saying the perfect thing. It's just about being there.
And all it takes is one person to ask, are you okay? All it takes is that one person just to show that they care, to kind of, although you are feeling lonely, it may not completely take you out of that state of loneliness, but all it takes is that one person to ask, are you truly okay? Or ask that second question and spend that extra 5 minutes with you, making sure everything's okay for you to start feeling that, hey, maybe I am not alone in this world. And then seeing Christ through them and knowing that Christ is with me, I'm not alone.
I think also loneliness is it's a difficult situation, and some people choose to be lonely when they move away from people that were once their friends or even family or whoever they may be. They move away because they've probably been disappointed by them or something has happened, so they choose not to get close to anyone, out of fear of losing something or being disappointed again, because people disappoint. And yeah, so
I like that point. It's an interesting issue. I think that people think that they get scared. Like if they have one bad scenario, they might get scared and they don't want to fall into the same thing again. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think what we touched earlier upon, the devil really targeting us. I think one instance where the devil can really is directly after we sin. After we sin, the devil will come into our ear and whisper us and tell us, you shouldn't have done that. That was pretty bad. God doesn't want to be with you. God doesn't want to connect with you. You're all alone. You're by yourself. And that's when he can truly be really detrimental. That's when he can truly be destructive. And that's why I think it is important to recognize that the devil does play these games, and the devil can manipulate these sort of situations. But the ironic thing is that it's at these point in time where God is most accepting. It's at this point in time that when you're fallen, that God really wants you to get up and to come and to talk to him. So it's ironic that at the point in time or at situations where you feel you're most lonely, that God wants you to be in most union with him, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah. Beck, moving on from that question, do you think the idea of loneliness, is it confined to a set few, or do you think everyone at some stage will experience it?
I think we've all experienced loneliness. I think that's why we understand why fellowship and unity is so important. Everyone in this room, everyone watching will feel loneliness at one point, because it's a trick that the devil will try and play on everyone. And it's why, God so often, through the Bible or through sermons that we hear, will always hear about fellowship and unity, because it's easy to put out one candle when that candle is by itself. But when there's fellowship and unity and there's many candles, it's easy for another candle to relight that candle if it goes out. So
it's a nice analogy, I like. So that actually is true, but what are some good coping mechanisms which you can use to sort of deal with if we get lonely? What do we do to deal with it?
I think acknowledging that, okay, in this moment, I am feeling lonely. And this is a point where the devil is trying to attack me and trying to make me feel in my head alone. Because like we mentioned before, you can be in a room full of people, but in your head, you're all alone. You're by yourself. But it's all about controlling your own mind almost and saying, look, I'm not the only one that's felt loneliness before. Everyone's felt it at one point or will feel it. And almost forcing yourself out of that mindset and saying, God is the one who wants me to be in unity and fellowship because He made me and knows that this is a dangerous place for me to be in. And it's almost forcing yourself to be out of that mindset and say, no, I will join in the fellowship and the unity because, yeah, it's a dangerous place to be. And so forcing yourself out of your comfort zone and really engaging with other people, forcing yourself almost to ask about other people or, drown yourself in that love, and actions of that love, and that will overcome anything, even the loneliness,
Michelle, she said one of the first things you should do is like acknowledge it. How hard is that for most people? Do you think?
I think it's very hard because to actually acknowledge the fact that you're lonely means you have to sit there and consider, your surroundings and how you feel. And it's not an easy thing for people to self-admit, yes, I'm lonely. But it's the step that you need to take in order to overcome it. You need to acknowledge the fact that you're experiencing these emotions, that you do feel alone and you do feel lonely. But in order to do that, you need to pray, you need to ask God for His guidance, and you need to ask Him to send you, that love and that comfort that you need at that time.
How do we know if it's not just a deception of loneliness, or it actually is the real deal? You said acknowledge it. Is that mean acknowledge the feeling of loneliness, or is that acknowledge that I am lonely? Because I feel that if you acknowledge that I am lonely, that can lead you down even some more negativity in your life. You feel oh, there's no one around to help me, or there's no one ever there. I mean, it may be true maybe for some, but is that the right thing we should have, or what do you guys think?
I think that you do have to recognize that you are alone, and you have to recognize that you are learning, but by the same point you have to recognize the positive aspect. You have to recognize that there is union with God, and that even though you are alone, that there is help out there, and there are people who want you to be with God. So not only is it just recognizing the problem, but you have to also recognize the solution. Because if you don't see a solution at all, then you'll just be in a problem the rest of your life.
You spiral.
Yeah, so you need to recognize that there is a solution. You need to recognize that, if you go to the Bible and you find that His words, in Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10, He says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." These words are like a comforting. These words, Him directly telling us, do not feel afraid, do not feel lonely. I am with you. I'm there for you. So right there, that's the solution. Right there, that is plainly, directly the solution that God's saying to your loneliness. I am the solution to your loneliness.
I like that last point. I think we'll end on that for this section of the segment. But I look forward to seeing you guys in the next part of the episode. See you soon. Welcome back to the next segment of CYC Youth Chat. As you know, today we've been discussing the idea of loneliness, and we discussed heavily the idea of coping mechanisms in the last part. But now, in a world where we are surrounded by social media, and we're constantly, surrounded by this buzzing, notifications, can we be led to believe that we may have friendships when in fact they may actually be superficial? What do you think, Sam?
Definitely, 100% we can. And that's the problem with social media, and that's even in the title, social media. It makes you think that you are part of a community, part of a society where you're connected to everyone else. You could be on Facebook and you could have 1,000 friends. But the question is that, do you truly have friendships with those 1,000 people? In most cases, no. In most cases, between the 1,000 friends that you have, you will talk to 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them, and then you will truly have friendships with maybe even none of them. And that's the problem, that's the deception, is that you could think to yourself, I have all these friends, but truly you could feel lonely. You could feel that there is not one of these people that I have friends with, that I'm truly friends with. And that's the deception of social media. And
I remember hearing a stat, don't quote me on this, but it's around that any one time a human can only have a proper intimate relationship with around 20 to 50 people. Does that sound about right?
That could very much be true, but it's all about how much trust we have. I like the term that Sam used, which is friendships. Not just the social media. Friendships, a lot of it is based on trust, and you can only trust so many people. So that that statistic could very much be true. It very much comes down to that. It comes down to the human interaction. Face to face, reading people's faces, their body language. You need to be in a room with people every once in a while. It's not, you know, even over Skype. That's still distant.
Yeah.
It needs to
It's
be.
not real, you know.
It's not real, you
Yeah.
know.
That's true.
So I was just going to say, and that is directly the problem, that instead of having a proper communication, we're having chats, we're having Snapchats, we're having, you know, quick, instant, 5-second things that, you know, you can just do it and then easily forget it. And that's the problem. There's no integrity in it. There's nothing that lasts in these sort of quick fix sort of today that technology like provides for us.
Yeah. So do you guys think it's actually increasing loneliness? Like,
I
it's
think-
counterintuitive, but
Yeah, I think it does. I think especially social media kind of feeds this idea of loneliness, because not only is it just quick, you know, 5-second chats or instant messaging and all that, it kind of gets us to not face people in a way. So like you're basically avoiding that physical, that face-to-face interaction, which leads to avoiding asking people, are you okay? And asking whether they're lonely as well, or whether they need, you know, friends and things like that. So I think it's kind of that slow feeding that we slowly don't realize. We think, oh yeah, you know, I've got 500 friends on Facebook, I talk to most of them, or, you know, I put a status up and most of them like it, and I've got all these connections with people, but have you actually connected with them?
do you think it's more so the fact that social media maybe teaches us lessons that will not benefit you in terms of like your human interaction, so that maybe leads to, you know, increased loneliness in society? Or
Yeah, I think social media, you know, will increase loneliness with a lot of people. Like an example would be if someone's on Facebook and they're scrolling down the newsfeed and they see a whole bunch of friends and they thought they were close friends or whatever, and they went out and didn't invite them. So that would crush that person. And I'm sure it's happened a lot to many people, many young people who even don't know how to cope with loneliness or don't know how to cope with that feeling, or yeah, so it's really terrible that it's like that. So imagine if they didn't have that Facebook account, maybe it would be a bit better, and they would maybe
That's
connect
true.
with their friends
But
a bit.
maybe it can be viewed in a positive light. Like, so I think it can. Like, I think it can be viewed in that way, because maybe it could be character building. You think that maybe you might make you more resilient. You know, being this whole idea of transparency, because you can see everything on the net. You can see, you know, what people are doing. Do you think that will help you in another way?
The problem with that, and the problem with the net, specifically with social media, is that you're not given true indications. You're not given true images. What you're given is like the false reality of what people want you to believe.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm posting a picture on Facebook, I'm not going to post a picture of me on Facebook of something that, you know, me being sad. I'll post something with me at a party, me with other people, me happy, and that gives a false indication to other people. People think that I'm happy. People think that, and even in turn, people can think, oh, he's so happy, he's so popular, he's got all his friends. What about me? So it's like a double negative sort of thing that, and it could lead to like a lot of destructive things that the devil could play with. But of course, there are positive aspects with social media, and there are positive aspects that social media can sort of help. But in regards to loneliness, I think that it's a big industry that can really target loneliness. It can target lonely people, make them feel a lot worse.
So I can think of actually a way. For instance, recently there's been the campaigns about depression, for instance. And I think social media can really be a shining light for those people, you know, and you can really use it to help and to reach out and even raise awareness about these issues, because I feel like too often, you know, people may forget the whole idea that someone else may not have a friend, or someone else may be lonely, but, you know, on social media you can tell the world, you can tell everyone about it. What are some ways you use social media to maybe help people or reach out, you know, to people that could be lonely?
Look, this month especially is like Mental Health Awareness Month. So this month is like, you know, I've seen a lot of posts about, you know, bringing mental health out in our society and making people aware of it, and making people aware of, you know, the different types and different illnesses and things like that. So that's a great way of using social media. Yeah.
What do you guys do?
I was thinking about how like people feel lonely when they're not in a group or when they don't belong to something. So as Coptic people, we belong to the Coptic church, or, you know, if I go to a certain university, I belong somewhere. So maybe Facebook or other social media platforms provide a place where people can make a hub or a group And it's only good if it's used in the right way, so everyone's included and all that. And maybe people that feel lonely or whatever can find their group there and support each other, and then find ways how to, help each other
leads
out.
on to the next question. Is how do we as Christians, deal with loneliness in social groups? So, I think we as a community, we actually form very strong groups because of our culture and our religion. Everyone's very united. But could that cause some people to feel, a bit left out?
I think it definitely can, because I don't think people realise, whether someone is left out in a group, because people think, oh, they're in a big group, they're having fun, there's no way they can be lonely. Whereas, it's hard to, spot whether they are. But I think, especially with our community and being, Christian, when you're in a group, especially when you're praising God, or when you're serving, or when you're fellowship, or being in that unity with God and having God as the centre of it, it's very hard to be lonely, because knowing that you're all there for the one purpose, for God, and knowing that God is with you, that kind of fuels the whole idea of being together and having that unity.
Sam, how do you think we should deal with loneliness within social groups as Christians?
I think you have that continual sort of care for people. I think that even though you guys are in a group, that you make sure that you can sort of communicate to other people on a one-on-one level. That it's not just, oh, I know that person from the big group that we're in. No, you should go to that person and really talk to them and really find out more about them and try and maintain a friendship with them. So it's not just about being in a large group. Yes, everyone's in a large group, everyone's together, but at the same time you have to make that effort of trying to connect with people on an individual sort of level. Because it's like what we said numerous times, it's very easy for people to feel alone in a big group, and it's and that's that's the most deceiving one, that they could be in a group and it could be they feel lonely, and that's deception, in other words. So I think just maintaining in the one-on-one sort of relationship.
I think it's also important, just quickly, especially as youth, if you are feeling lonely, to have someone to talk to. We think that being lonely, it's our problem, and we don't want to burden anyone or bring anyone else down with us or make them feel sad or upset or feel that pity. But it is important that you find someone to talk to. I know for us, we have our confession fathers, or find, if you don't want it to be your parents, a sibling or a friend or someone older in the church that that you can trust. Because even just raising the idea of, hey, I'm feeling lonely these days, it helps, being able to speak about it and trying to get advice from someone else.
Do you think that sometimes we may, force the idea of loneliness on ourselves? Do you think it might be self-inflicted more than, it being, say, a natural occurrence, or should there be no separation there?
I think sometimes it can be self-inflicted. I know personally for myself, I tend to overthink a lot of things. So I would sit there and then I'd see a post on Facebook where, a lot of my friends went out and I wasn't invited, and you start to think about it. But I think that's where the devil gets us. That's where he starts planting his little seeds and, getting the idea that, yeah, we are lonely. But then I sit there thinking, that's okay, because, I've got these close friends, I've got these friendships, and most importantly, I've got God. So...
Yeah, another way people self-inflict, their loneliness is I've seen people get new things, keep going, buying new things just to compensate for that feeling. It's just a feeling. So, yeah, they need to figure out a way to really maybe stop feeling lonely and remember that God is there always with us, and you can never be lonely if you have God. And then start to connect with other people and be social and
Yeah, that's actually a good point. What do you think are some substitutes that we have in our life, substitutes so we don't feel lonely? They're not always legitimate substitutes, but we have them in place. Sam?
I think there are dangerous substitutes and there are good substitutes. For example, if you're feeling lonely, a good substitute is to go out with people, is to have a conversation with someone, is to read your Bible, is to listen to a sermon, something like that. But the problem with society today is that they find bad substitutes for it, like drinking, like drugs, like bad friendships, like bad environments to go hang out. And that's what we need to avoid. We need to avoid these bad substitutes to loneliness. And if we don't, one of our brothers or one of our sisters who are close to us, we don't know if they're lonely or not, and they could replace their loneliness with this substitute. And not only does it lead to them being more lonely and more, isolated, but they need these things more. They will need more alcohol. They'll need more drugs. They'll need more bad friends. And it's just a downward spiral from there. So I think there are positive replacements and there are negative replacements. And the idea is just sort of to cut out the negative ones and to embrace more of the positive ones.
Beck, what do you think, in your opinion, is the best way to get out of that spiral?
I think looking at the big picture, and I think balance is a really important thing. There's always a positive note to having a balanced life. So having a balance between the alone time, but you understanding that that alone time is with you and God, understanding that friends are okay and they can be very beneficial. But I think balance is really key to the isolation.
What do you guys think about balance idea? Yeah.
I think it is a good idea because, as we said earlier in the first segment, just because I'm by myself or I'm alone doesn't mean I'm lonely. So I think having that time with God and getting to know God one-on-one is just as important as having friends and talking with your friends and getting to know people on that kind of friendship and social level. It's important to have people to trust, but it's also important to have time to yourself as well. But it's all in that balance as well.
All right, and one final question: are there any favorite parts in the Bible, any favorite examples or stories you like, where someone maybe was lonely and they found their way out of it? Or
one of my favorites is in Genesis, where God actually recognizes that it's not good for man to be alone. So in 2 Genesis 18, it says, "And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." Like he made Adam and he saw it is not good for people to be alone. It is not good for man to be alone. So what did he do? He made Eve. And I think that kind of shows us how important it is for us to find that kind of human connection. And it also reinforces that God understands when we feel lonely. And he knows, and that's why he has that solution for us. We just have to have faith and trust that he will bring someone to us and help us out of it.
I like that story, and I think we'll end on that note. Now, thank you very much for joining me in this episode today. It's been pretty productive. I like our conclusions, especially that last part to do with technology. The idea, it could be a deception, but as well, we could get positives out of it. We could use it to actually deal with depression, maybe help people out of it. I also like the idea that we found coping mechanisms, how to, acknowledging that you have it, and also finding people and finding God through that trial. Thanks very much, guys, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode. See you guys soon.